Tor out of his tiny boat, whose eyes beheld the Nile, Wolf with his war cry on his lips, and Hacro born in the eclipse, who blocked the Seine with battleships round Paris on the Isle. And Hakon of the harvest song, and Dirk from the Elbe he slew, and Knut that melted Durham Bell, and Folk in fiery Oscar fell, and Goderic and Sigil, and Uriel of the Yew. And highest sang the slaughter, and fastest fell the slain, when from the wood road's blackening throat a crowning and crashing wonder smote the rear guard of the Dane. For the dregs of Colin's company, lost down the other road, had gathered and grown and heard the din, and with wild yells came pouring in, naked as their old British kin, and bright with blood forebode. And bare and bloody and aloft they bore before their band the body of their mighty lord, Colin of Caerleon, and the horde that broke King Alfred's battle sword, broken in his left hand. And a strange music went with him, loud and yet strangely far. The wild pipes of the western land, too keen for the ear to understand, sang high and deathly on each hand, when the dead men went to war. Blocked between ghost and buccaneer, brave men have dropped and died, and the wild sea lords well might quail as the ghastly war pipes of the gale called to the horns of the White Horse Vale, and all the horns replied. And Hildred the poor hedger cut down 4 captains dead, and Halfgar laid 7 others low, and the great earls wavered to and fro for the living and the dead. And Gorlius grasped the great flag, the raven of Odin torn, and the eyes of Guthrum altered for the first time since morn. As a turn of the wheel of tempest tilts up the whole sky tall, and cliffs of wan clouds luminous leans out like great walls over us, as if the heavens might fall. As such a tall and tilted sky sends certain snow or light, so did the eyes of Guthrum change, and the turn was more certain and more strange than 1,000 men in flight. For not till the floor of the skies is split, and hellfire shines through the sea, or the stars look up through the rent earth's knees, cometh such rending of certainties, as when one wise man truly sees what is more wise than he. He set his horse in the battle breach, even Guthrum of the Dane, and as ever had fallen fell his brand, a falling tower o'er many a land. But Gurth the fowler laid one hand upon this bridle rein. King Guthrum was a great lord, and higher than his gods. He put the popes to laughter, he chid the saints with rods. He took this hollow world of ours for a cup to hold his wine. In the parting of the woodways there came to him a sign. In Wessex in the forest, in the breaking of the spears, we set a sign on Guthrum to blaze 1,000 years. Where the high saddles jostle and the horsetails toss, there rose to the birds flying a roar of dead and dying. In deafness and strong crying, we signed him with the cross. Far out to the winding river, the blood ran down for days, when we put the cross on Guthrum in the parting of the ways.
Pretty amazing. Thanks, Addison. That was great. You did a really nice job reading. What happened? Anybody? What just happened? I mean, we're told that Alfred is better in defeat than in victory, but is that what we see at the end there?
No, they're winning.
Jonathan?
I think they're winning, aren't they?
Yeah, right. And what do they do with Guthrum at the end there?
They bury him under a cross.
Yeah, this is pretty amazing, right? And so here we've got Chesterton, really telling us, even in this moment of battle, right? We've got this idea that even the most pagan of pagans can be saved, right? This is Christ's redemption, and it's up to him, ultimately, not up to us. And so we've got this beautiful moment, just incredible moment of mercy and justice right at the end of all of this. And it's incredible. And so when we look, and we'll do this next week with Hugh reading, we'll assume Hugh will have made it back by then, and with Drew reading, we're going to jump forward quite a ways as we're looking in book 8 of what's happening. We're going to start thinking about what's going on in the modern world as well, and what that connection is. But I think that there's something really important. And Addison, I'd love you to talk in a moment, just your reflections on what you read. But I do think that part of what Chesterton is doing is that he's telling us that there's something in the Middle Ages that we've lost. That is, there's something beautiful in the Middle Ages, and that it's not just a time period of darkness and superstition, but in fact it was a time period of Christian bravery. It was a time period in which Christians were willing to fight for what they believed and to defend hearth and home. And I think that spirit is critical for Chesterton. Imagine when he's writing this. It's about 1908. We're still several years before World War I. But I think Chesterton knows that the 20th century is going to be a brutal century. And so he's calling to us again, and he's saying, look, where can we go back to find strength? We find it with King Alfred. We find it there. And why King Alfred? Because Alfred knew and finally acquiesced that it wasn't about his will, it was about God's will, right? This is the word of the world's desire. No more of comfort shall you get, save the sky grows darker and the sea rises higher. So I think that's really essential for what Chesterton is trying to do here. And it's a battle cry. How many, just think about this, how many epic poems were published in the 20th century? Not that many. And so when Chesterton decides, I'm going to write an epic poem, we should probably take it pretty seriously and say, okay, what are you doing this for? What's going on here? Addison, any thoughts on your reading? Which, you did a great job. Wonderful job.
Yeah, obviously the whole charge is just really beautiful and moving, but I really liked at the end when it's talking about Guthrum, and when it's talking about him like he was a great lord and higher than his gods, and it's like talking about how he had all of this worldly power and influence, but then he ends in the same way everyone else does. He's buried, and then he's ended even more humble, like he's buried under a cross. And so it's just like you can have all of this worldly influence, power, goods, but like it all ends the same way, and what matters is
nicely stated, very nicely stated. And what an important reminder for all of us, right? Absolutely, that we die in equality. There's something very deeply profound about that. No matter how different we are in this world, we die in equality. Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, you guys have anybody else? Drew?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but here, for the three ending stanzas, is this the first time that we get like a we in the book?
Oh, I don't know.
It says, like, we set a sign on Guthrum to blaze 1,000 years. We sign him with a cross. Like then when we put the cross on Guthrum. And I've been flipping through and I can't really see any other one where like Eliot puts like all of us in this story too.
Yeah.
So I think he's trying to emphasize that this isn't just an Alfred victory, it's like a Christian victory.
Yeah, that's great, Drew. I think you're absolutely right. I think that's what Chesterton is doing. But I had not caught that until you said that. Once you say it though, can you guys think back any of the times you've read that we've had a we? I don't think so. I think that's the first time. So this is a great Christian victory, not just Alfred's victory. Yeah, and even signing Guthrum with the cross, right? That's a victory in and of itself. Good. Okay, you guys, anything else? It's great. Okay, well, we ready to finish Eliot? Pretty amazing. We've done this great journey over the last several weeks, thinking about what Eliot is trying to do here. Little Gidding is both the most beautiful and the most complicated of what's happening here, because he's got to tie it all together. And so we've got Heraclitus, and we have the Logos, we have the playing with time and what time means, and now Eliot has to pull all of this together. And remember that we're looking at Little Gidding, we're looking at the element of fire, which of course makes sense if we're thinking about the Logos. It has to be fire. It has to be imagination, words, speech, all of that. But are you guys, I can't remember if we had talked about this before or not. Do you guys know what Little Gidding is? Had we talked about this? Okay, Little Gidding is a little Anglican church in the middle of England. And it's a spot that Eliot really favored, even though it's just this little Anglican church. It is the church where Charles, who is beheaded by the Puritans, it is the church that the Puritans allow him to go to give his last confession before he's executed by the Puritans themselves. And so for people like Eliot, who would consider Charles a saint, we wouldn't do that in the Catholic Church, but in the Anglican Church, he would be considered a saint, at least by certain Anglicans. I'm not sure all Anglicans, but by certain Anglicans. Here we have his martyrdom. And so for him to go into Little Gidding and to give his last confession and to receive last rites, it's a pretty amazing moment, right? In the 1640s, where he's now going to be executed right after that. So this idea, and the idea of the return of the king, we find that in much of Eliot's poetry. And Charles, being the great martyr, is a martyr for Eliot in the line that Jesus is. And so that's why Little Gidding matters so much, because it is just this little chapel, but a beautiful chapel with all kinds of significance. So Little Gidding, again with the sanctuary, Eliot is also buried here. Right? If you go to Little Gidding, this is where Eliot's body is to this day. So he too sings sanctuary here as well. But I want you guys to note, and I hope that you'll catch this right away. We'll break it down like we've been doing it. But there are a lot of references to Dante, not surprisingly. There's going to be a lot of Dante in here. But there are also a lot of references to King Arthur and the Arthurian legend. So again, that shouldn't be totally surprising for us. But just kind of think about that, especially with the idea of a chapel perilous, where we confront our greatest sins in confession and recognize that. So that's all going to be here. But we're looking for still points, just like the cross is a still point around which everything revolves. We're also looking for the true still point, and we won't get to it until the last couple of lines of Little Gidding. And then we have, and I'm not going to give it away yet, but we'll have the revelation of what Eliot thinks is the ultimate still point in history. Okay, you guys ready?
Little Gidding. Midwinter spring is its own season, sempiternal though sodden toward sundown, suspended in time between pole and tropic. When the short day is brightest with frost and fire, the brief sun flames the ice on pond and ditches. In windless cold there is the heart's heat, reflecting in a watery mirror a glare that is blindness in the early afternoon, and glow more intense than blaze of branch or brazier stirs the dumb spirit. No wind, but Pentecostal fire in the dark time of the year. Between melting and freezing the soul's sap quivers. There is no earth smell or smell of living thing. This is the springtime, but not in time's covenant. Now the hedgerow is blanched for an hour with transitory blossom of snow, a bloom more sudden than that of summer, neither budding nor fading, not in the scheme of generation. Where is the summer, the unimaginable zero summer? If you came this way, taking the route you would be likely to take, from the place you would be likely to come from, if you came this way in Maytime, you would find the hedges white again in May with voluptuary sweetness. It would be the same at the end of the journey if you came at night like a broken king, if you came by day not knowing what you came for. It would be the same when you leave the rough road and turn behind the pigsty to the dull facade and the tombstone. And what you thought you came for is only a shell, a husk of meaning, from which the purpose breaks only when it is fulfilled, if at all. Either you had no purpose, or the purpose is beyond the end you figured and is altered in fulfillment. There are other places which also are the world's end, some at the sea jaws, or over a dark lake, in a desert or a city. But this is the nearest in place and time, now and in England. If you came this way, taking any route, starting from anywhere, at any time or at any season, it would always be the same. You would have to put off sense and notion. You are not here to verify, instruct yourself, or inform curiosity or carry a report. You are here to kneel where prayer has been valid. And prayer is more than an order of words, the conscious occupation of the praying mind, or the sound of the voice praying. And what the dead had no speech for when living, they can tell you being dead. The communication of the dead is tongued with fire beyond the language of the living. Here, the intersection of the timeless moment is England and nowhere, never and always.
Okay, guys have thoughts? Drew?
It feels kind of more somber
Okay.
than past plays. I don't know, just kind of like it feels much more still almost. Like it's trails, but they're all the same, leading to the same place, and it just seems like a much more serious moment.
Yeah.
Like not, I guess like not like ominous, but still something that like draws your attention and says it's really important.
That's excellent. Let's play with that a little bit. So, Drew, I think you're absolutely right. But just start at the beginning there, right where he started reading. Where are we? What would the short day be?
It'd be like a warmer spring day in like
Okay,
March or February.
earlier, right? The short day, December 21st, right? So that's the short day, right? So midwinter spring in its own season, right? Suspended in time between pole and tropic when the short day is brightest with frost and fire. So think about that image of what he's getting at and notice what he's playing with in what he's doing here. We all celebrate Christmas on December 25th. Why do we do that? Because the church messed up, right? If we really were celebrating Christmas properly, it would be on December 21st because that's the shortest day. And so when would Jesus come? Of course he would come when it is darkest, right? And everything is bright from that point forward. You guys realize, I mean, I hope we know this just historically. We have no idea what day Jesus was born on. And it's almost certainly not December 21st or 25th. But that's when we celebrate it. And so we accept that. It's like, okay. But notice, it's 4 days off. And there's a kind of beauty in that we messed up. There's a kind of beauty in that mistake, that we're 4 days off what it should have been, if we're really, and yet, what's the beauty too? We don't want to be total pagans, right? We're not worshiping God on winter solstice. We're worshiping the God who uses winter solstice for his own purposes, but beyond what we're doing. So, Drew, I think you're absolutely right. And you're not wrong, Jonathan, because we're going to jump to spring here in just a moment. But think about why it's white. It's white because, first of all, it's snow, but the sun's coming in at dusk. And so it's brightened. But then it's white because, just like right now, everything's in bloom. Right? So that he's definitely connecting winter to spring. Right? There's Arthur. There's King Arthur in that. Right? The idea of what does the Christ figure do? He ushers spring in all of this. But the stillness is this, Drew. It's Christmas Day, or close, right? We're really close. and the snow is falling, and we step outside, and you guys, I mean, how many of you have ever been in the woods right after snowfall? It's a silence that you never experience anywhere else. It's its own unique silence. And we're just about to say the Christ child is born, but not yet. We're right there. We're right at that moment, but not quite yet, because the angels are going to start singing here in a little bit. And so, think about the broken king, right? If you came at night like a broken king, well, there's Charles, but there's also Arthur, right, as well. And there's Christ. On Friday is a broken king, right? He's going to be fine, but he's broken on Friday. So all of that is playing into this. But it's also, we're in the woods. It's the middle of our life. It's Dante, right? It's in every way. Maria?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when you were talking about like the winter and the spring. It kind of echoes what we've been talking about with like the cycles of nature and of liturgy. But then he like ties that to, this place would still be the same whenever you come here, which is how we've talked about. It's a very like sacramental moment that's happening here. And I also was really struck by the part about prayer. Prayer is more than an order of words, the conscious occupation of the praying mind or the sound of the voice praying. I think it was.
Keep going, Maria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's so powerful.
Yeah. Prayer is more than an order of words, the conscious occupation of the praying mind or the sound of the voice praying. And what the dead had no speech for when living, they can tell you being dead. The communication of the dead is tongued with fire beyond the language of the living. Here, the intersection of the timeless moment is England and nowhere, never and always.
Okay, talk about that.
I thought the part about prayer was really interesting because we were talking in the last section here. There was that thing where he was saying to contemplate and enter into that intersection of time with the timeless is the occupation of saints.
Yeah.
And so that seemed to connect with the idea that prayer has something to do with that.
Okay, when I pray, and let's just say me now, alive in this world, when I pray, what am I doing according to Eliot? He tells us, am I here to verify?
You're here to kneel.
I'm here to kneel. I'm here to submit. That's what prayer is.
Yeah.
Do I always get an answer? Of course not. God doesn't have to answer me, right? But I still have to kneel. I have to pray, right? So you are not here to verify, instruct yourself, or inform curiosity, or carry a report. You're here to kneel, right?
That was in the last one too, where the occupation for the saint. He talks about self-surrender.
Exactly. And isn't that beautiful? Right? Okay, so now let's say it's 50 years from now and I'm dead. Right? You guys will still be here 50 years from now. I'm dead 50 years from now. Now what's my prayer? Did you catch this? Maria, what's my prayer now?
I guess it's another level of contemplation of God.
Right. I mean, isn't that what eternity is? Not contemplating the self. That would be hell. It's contemplating God. It's contemplating all that's true and good and beautiful. So the dead can actually communicate in ways that even you and I right now, we just don't understand. Right? Because now they have the Word. They're part of the Word. Right? And I love that. I think this, for me, this is Eliot reaching beyond something I think most of us have ever understood. Right? He really is in the middle of a miracle as he's writing this. There's something deeply mystical in what he's doing. And it's hard for us because we are in the land of the living. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think God gave Eliot a certain grace to understand these things in ways that just had not been understood before. I think there's something really profound going on in this poem, even more than the other four quartets. He's grasped an eternal reality in some way that most of us just don't at all. Maria?
Yeah, this part in particular reminded me of the Purgatorio, when Dante, I think he's kind of like in the upper levels of purgatory, but they're like on the edge of a cliff, and they find all these guys that I think they're like stuck to the ground, and maybe their eyes have been gouged out, if I
okay.
remember it correctly.
I can't remember.
But like they're like, all they can do is just pray for the people on earth, and like,
Oh, so they're doing good things.
yeah, so they're just stuck, like that's all they do
Yeah.
is just pray
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the living.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. Okay. Anybody else on this? Go forward a little bit. All right. What we're going to see now is Eliot pulling things together in part number 2, and it's long, but he pulls all 4 elements together. All right. He's been talking about earth and wind and water and fire, but he's going to tell us, okay, we're focusing on the wrong thing. That's the pagan stuff. It was fine. It pointed us in the right direction, but we can't stay there. We have to move on beyond that. We have to get to Christianity in some way. We have to figure out what that means. Okay.
Ash on an old man's sleeve is all the ash the burnt roses leave. Dust in the air suspended marks the place where a story ended. Dust in-breathed was a house, the wall, the wainscot, and the mouse. The death of hope and despair, this is the death of air. There are flood and drouth over the eyes and in the mouth, dead water and dead sand contending for the upper hand. The parched, eviscerate soil gapes at the vanity of toil, laughs without mirth. This is the death of earth. Water and fire succeed the town, the pasture, and the weed. Water and fire deride the sacrifice that we denied. Water and fire shall rot the marred foundations we forgot of sanctuary and choir. This is the death of water and fire. In the uncertain hour before the morning, near the ending of interminable night, at the recurrent end of the unending, after the dark dove with the flickering tongue had passed below the horizon of his homing, while the dead leaves still rattled on like tin over the asphalt where no other sound was, between 3 districts whence the smoke arose, I met one walking, loitering and hurried, as if blown toward me like the metal leaves, before the urban dawn wind, unresisting. And as I fixed upon the downturned face, that pointed scrutiny with which we challenge the first met stranger in the waning dusk, I caught the sudden look of some dead master, whom I had known, forgotten, half recalled, both one and many. In the brown baked features, the eyes of a familiar compound ghost, both intimate and unidentifiable. So I assumed a double part, and cried and heard another's voice cry, "What? Are you here?" Although we were not. I was still the same, knowing myself, yet being someone other, and he a face still forming. Yet the words sufficed to compel the recognition they preceded, and so, compliant to the common wind, too strange to each other for misunderstanding, in concord at this intersection time of meeting nowhere, no before and after, we trod the pavement in a dead patrol. I said, "The wonder that I feel is easy, yet ease is cause of wonder. Therefore speak. I may not comprehend, may not remember." And he, "I am not eager to rehearse my thought and theory which you have forgotten. These things have served their purpose. Let them be. So with your own, and pray they be forgiven by others, as I pray you to forgive both bad and good. Last season's fruit is eaten, and the full-fed beast shall kick the empty pail. For last year's words belong to last year's language, and next year's words await another voice. But as the passage now presents no hindrance, to the spirit unappeased and peregrine, between two worlds become much like each other, so I find words I never thought to speak, in streets I never thought I should revisit, when I left my body on a distant shore. Since our concern was speech, and speech impelled us to purify the dialect of the tribe, and urge the mind to aftersight and foresight, let me disclose the gifts reserved for age, to set a crown upon your lifetime's effort. First, the cold friction of expiring sense without enchantment, offering no promise but bitter tastelessness of shadow fruit, as body and soul begin to fall asunder. Second, the conscious impotence of rage at human folly, and the laceration of laughter at what ceases to amuse. And last, the rending pain of reenactment of all that you have done and been, the shame of motives late revealed, and the awareness of things ill done and done to others harm, which once you took for exercise of virtue. Then fool's approval stings, and honor stains. From wrong to wrong, the exasperated spirit proceeds, unless restored by that refining fire, where you must move in measure, like a dancer. The day was breaking. In the disfigured street, he left me with a kind of valediction, and faded on the blowing of the horn.
Okay, you guys, I think the first part's pretty obvious. We love Heraclitus. He gave us the word logos, but we never stopped there. Right? It has to be fulfilled in Jesus. So yes, we thank the Greeks for giving us the four elements: earth, water, fire, air. But that's not enough. Right? So we never want to be stuck there in paganism. We just recognize that the pagans got something right. But Heraclitus is not getting us to heaven at all, even though he was given the word logos. Right? That's great, but we can't stay there. Okay, but then what happens? So this is the death of earth. This is the death of water and fire. Did you guys catch? This is totally unusual. We've not seen anything like this in the four quartets. What happens to Eliot right now in the rest of this? Addison?
He seems to be visited by a ghost or
Yeah.
some vision.
Yeah, and it takes up almost the whole thing, right? He's visited by some dead man, and look what happens at the very end. In the disfigured street, he left me with a kind of valediction, a prayer. He left me with a prayer and faded on the blowing of the horn. And what did you catch right before that? And again, you guys, I apologize. This is going to be, if you're Catholic, this is going to make a little bit more sense than if not. But what just happened right before that? Why can we take this ghost's words seriously?
Sounds like he's describing purgatory.
Yeah, right? This whole idea of the refining fire, right? So whatever this guy got wrong, he got something right. But it has to be going through the refiner's fire, right? And this is, scripturally, this is where Catholics take this, right? And you guys don't have to. I'm not trying to convince anybody. But the idea of purgatory comes from the idea of, if it's gold, it will pass through unharmed. But if it's made of straw, it will burn, but the person will pass through as saved. Right? So you guys want to take a guess? Who did he meet? He tells us, I caught the sudden look of some dead master. And think about the language that they have with each other. You guys have to think back to the beginning of the semester here. To compel the recognition, this is on 141, they proceeded. And so compliant to the common wind, too strange to each other for misunderstanding, in concord at this intersection time of meeting nowhere, no before and after, we trod the pavement in a dead patrol. Right? They're like Marines going out into combat. I said, right, this is Eliot, I said, the wonder that I feel is easy, yet ease is cause of wonder. Therefore speak, I may not comprehend, may not remember. And he said, I am not eager to rehearse my thought and theory which you have forgotten. These things have served their purpose. Let them be. So just think back to the beginning of the semester. Who's the dead master? Maria?
It's not Heraclitus, is it?
Not Heraclitus. No, it's more recent than that, right?
Irving Babbitt.
It's Babbitt. Absolutely. Why would you say that, Nathaniel? Why would you say that?
Because obviously he seems on pretty good terms with this ghost. And,
Yep.
An old master who it sounds like they had a falling out with of sorts. And like we talked about earlier with his conversion, that it seemed their relationship never really was fully restored.
Yep. Great job, bud. I'm proud of you. It's really good. So, yeah, this is Babbitt, right? And think about, what did Babbitt give us? He gave us humanism. What does Eliot give us? Christian humanism. So we're going to still thank Babbitt for that. But he's not. Just like we don't stop with Heraclitus, we don't stop with Babbitt either. We have to keep going. And so we thank Babbitt. You did a great job. You told us what humanism was, but you really failed because you didn't find its fulfillment. And yet, if Eliot's right, and I can't judge these things, you guys can't judge these things, God forgave Babbitt for not quite getting there, right? He's still going to say a prayer, valediction. So somehow Babbitt made it to purgatory, which means he's going to heaven. Right? Once you're in purgatory, you can't go to hell. That's not possible. So this is great, right? And again, I think we could agree or disagree. Wait, Babbitt wasn't really saved. Should he be in heaven? Well, that's not up to us, right? That's up to God and God's mercy. So, and you think about at the end of The Last Battle from C.S. Lewis, right? Think about the Muslim boy who at the end, Aslan says to him, I transfer your loyalty to me, right? That's crazy, but maybe that's God's mercy. I don't know that. So that's what we're getting here with Eliot as well, right? God's infinite mercy. But I love that. I mean, how cool would that be if you're dead? And it is just like Dante meeting. You guys remember the moment in Purgatorio where Dante finds one of his fans, and his fan starts reciting his poetry to him, and Dante's like, yeah, I was really good, man. And then Virgil taps him on the shoulder and says, we've been standing here for 1,000 years because you've been thinking about yourself. Like, oh, crap. Okay. And that's that moment we've got here right now. It's like, yeah, Babbitt, thanks. You were great. You weren't good enough, but you were great, and we're glad you're here. So it's a really beautiful, merciful, very merciful moment. And I'll tell you guys this, and I am speaking as a Catholic, so forgive me for this, but there is something, and I know Protestants don't agree with purgatory, and I understand that. I understand the arguments. But there is something so merciful about purgatory that even if it's not true, it's a beautiful thing in and of itself. And that's where Eliot is coming from on this. Okay, you guys ready? We'll go on to the next. My computer shut down. Okay, here we go.
There are three conditions which often look alike, yet differ completely, flourish in the same hedgerow. Attachment to self and to things and to persons, detachment from self and from things and from persons, and growing between them indifference, which resembles the others as death resembles life, being between two lives, unflowering between the live and the dead nettle. This is the use of memory for liberation, not less of love, but expanding of love beyond desire, and so liberation from the future as well as the past. Thus, love of a country begins as attachment to our own field of action, and comes to find that action of little importance, though never indifferent. History may be servitude, history may be freedom. See, now they vanish, the faces and places, with the self which, as it could, loved them, to become renewed, transfigured in another pattern. Sin is behoovely, but all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. If I think again of this place, and of people not wholly commendable, of no immediate kin or kindness, but some of peculiar genius, all touched by a common genius, united in the strife which divided them. If I think of a king at nightfall, of 3 men and more on the scaffold, and a few who died forgotten in other places, here and abroad, and of one who died blind and quiet, why should we celebrate these dead men more than the dying? It is not to ring the bell backward, nor is it an incantation to summon the spectre of a rose. We cannot revive old factions, we cannot restore old policies, or follow an antique drum. These men, and those who opposed them, and those whom they opposed, accept the constitution of silence, and are folded in a single party. Whatever we inherit from the fortunate, we have taken from the defeated what they had to leave us, a symbol perfected in death. And all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, by the purification of the motive in the ground of our beseeching.
Okay, that's a complicated one, and I'll just run through a couple of things here. So obviously we've got this repetition, all shall be well and all manner of things shall be well, right? We've seen that now 3 times just in this part number 3. And that's a beautiful sentiment that, we know Christ wins in the end, and so everything will be well, regardless of what hell we're going through here and now, right? We know that Christ has conquered. I think the obvious thing at the end there, the symbol perfected in death, is the cross, right? That's the symbol of crucifixion, the symbol of the death penalty. And we had talked about this earlier in the semester. Think about how we think of the cross. It would be as if today we took the chair, right, the execution chair, and made it a symbol. We're taking one of the creepiest things ever, the symbol of execution, and we're making it holy. It's weird when you think about it, and yet, there it is, right? And I'm sure I'm not alone in this. It's our symbol. It's what we believe in. We've done something that is utterly, we've taken something that is utterly evil, and we've made it good. We didn't do it, Christ did, right? But that's kind of the craziness of all of that. But look at these lines. This is Eliot at his most poetic and philosophical. Think about what we have here. From self, so this is just a few lines in, from self and from things and from persons, and growing between them in difference which resembles the others as death resembles life, being between 2 lives, unflowering between the live and the dead nettle. This is the use of memory for liberation, not less of love, but expanding of love beyond desire. And so liberation from the future, as well as of the past, right? And so memory for Eliot is essentially what we would call imagination. It's the ability to see beyond ourselves. And when we imagine, think about what that means. The image, John 1:9, the light that lighteth up every man. Memory and imagination allows us to move away from the self. And remember again, what is hell? Hell is the dwelling on the self. Right? And it's not that in heaven we lose our individuality. In fact, we gain it in ways we've never understood. But hell is truly just focused on the self. That's what it is, not focused on the other. So that's what memory does. And now, and you guys would really have to do a lot of deep reading for this to make sense, but he's drawing directly on Edmund Burke in this next part, almost word for word, straight from Edmund Burke. Thus, the love of a country begins as attachment to our own field of action and comes to find that action of little importance, though never indifferent. So think about this. If I didn't provide a safe home for Maria, if she didn't love me as her father, why would she ever love her country? She learns love from her mother and her father, and then she grows to love country. And we start with that. You guys all love your mom and dad. You love your siblings. You love your cousins. And then you love the country because it gave you shelter that allowed you to love your mom and dad. We don't love our country because it's America. We love America because America has allowed us to flourish. It's not an abstraction. It becomes real in some way. And so Eliot, in the next few lines, just demolishes progressivism. History may be servitude. History may be freedom. Right? It's not a thing in and of itself. God is a thing in and of itself, not history. Right? And so all of that, he's playing with this idea. But then, notice what he says again. Sin is behoovely, right? We wouldn't sin if we didn't find it attractive. But even after that, Christ will make it good, right? Because all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. If I think again of this place and of people, not wholly commendable, of no immediate kin or kindness, but some of peculiar genius, all touched by a common genius, united in the strife which divides them. And there again, we're back to Heraclitus and the Logos. That thing which holds us all together, we see that in one another, right? That's the common genius overall. And again, we get then to the cross, this symbol perfected in death. Okay, guys, I'm gonna just run right now. We're gonna go through 4 and 5 at the same time. 4 is very short, right? It's Pentecost. That should be pretty obvious right away. The dove descending will be in Pentecost, and we'll see that. But then the last section, 5, I think is the best section by far of everything we've read, maybe of anything we've talked about this semester. I think that part number 5 is just stunning. But you'll see at the end what the answer is, right? We'll see what really is the still point.
The dove descending breaks the air with flame of incandescent terror, of which the tongues declare the one discharge from sin and error. The only hope or else despair lies in the choice of fire or power, to be redeemed from fire by fire. Who then devised the torment? Love. Love is the unfamiliar name behind the hands that wove the intolerable shirt of flame which human power cannot remove. We only live, only suspire, consumed by either fire or fire. What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from, and every phrase and sentence that is right, where every word is at home, taking its place to support the others, the word neither diffident nor ostentatious, an easy commerce of the old and the new, the common word exact without vulgarity, the formal word precise but not pedantic, the complete consort dancing together. Every phrase and every sentence is an end and a beginning, every poem an epitaph. And any action is a step to the block, to the fire, down the sea's throat, or to an illegible stone. And that is where we start. We die with the dying. See, they depart, and we go with them. We are born with the dead. See, they return, and bring us with them. The moment of the rose and the moment of the yew tree are of equal duration. A people without history is not redeemed from time, for history is a pattern of timeless moments. So, while the light fails on a winter's afternoon in a secluded chapel, history is now and England. With the drawing of this love and the voice of this calling, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Through the unknown remembered gate, when the last of earth left to discover is that which was the beginning, at the source of the longest river, the voice of the hidden waterfall, and the children in the apple tree, not known because not looked for, but heard, half heard, in the stillness between two waves of the sea. Quick now, here now, always, a condition of complete simplicity, costing not less than everything. And all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, when the tongues of flame are enfolded into the crowned knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one.
Okay, what happened? What's Eliot's conclusion there?
Is it the Sacred Heart of Jesus?
Okay, it's close. Yeah, it's a good guess. What would be the rose and what would be the fire? Remember, we're trying to figure out what the still point is. What gives us redemption? And think about the kind of language he uses. Between two waves of the sea, quick now, here now, always. A condition of complete simplicity, costing not less than everything. So it's a complete and total surrender in every way. Addison?
This might be way off, but I know we've talked about Mary as the rose. Is it like Mary accepting?
Yeah, this is the incarnation, right? We've got the flame, the Holy Spirit, and Mary, right? So that moment where Mary surrenders to God and Christ becomes fully man as well as fully God, that's the moment. And it's not that the death and the resurrection don't matter, but think about what the incarnation does. It's God taking on our image rather than us taking on his image. So that for Eliot is where everything starts. It all starts. And remember what we talked about earlier, the calamitous annunciation, the way that he had put that. So the incarnation, and you guys, I don't know if you know the date, but traditionally it's March 25th is the date of the incarnation, right? 9 months before Christmas. That's the moment that we have this. And think about how he puts this, and I love this, the way that, you know, look at point number 4. The dove descending breaks the air with flame of incandescent terror, right? The flames coming down on Pentecost, of which the tongues declare the one discharge from sin and error. The only hope, or else despair, lies in the choice of pyre or pyre, to be redeemed by fire or fire. Now, just think about how many times we see fire in the Bible. You know, think about Moses when he approaches the burning bush. Or think about what Jesus says. What is Gehenna? Gehenna is the trash heap outside of Jerusalem. It's where they burn all their trash. Right? It's hell. So fire can be a very terrible thing. It can also be the Holy Spirit. It can be God. It can be the Logos, right? In all kinds of ways. Who then devised the torment? The torment, what is that? It's the giving up of self. That's the torment. But who devised it? Love. Right? Love gave us that. Love is the unfamiliar name behind the hands that wove the intolerable shirt of flame, which human power cannot remove. We only live, only suspire, consumed either by fire or fire. What we call the beginning is often the end. Of course, what's the beginning? It's the incarnation, right? And yet it's not the end because we know what's going to happen. And to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. And then think about this. Again, we always say this, right? We know this. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was made flesh. We say that all the time. But what does it actually mean? Eliot breaks this down. And every phrase and sentence is right. And every word is at home, taking its place to support the others. The word, neither diffident nor ostentatious. An easy commerce of the old and the new. The old and the new covenant. The common word exact, without vulgarity. The formal word precise, but not pedantic. And the complete consort dancing together. Every phrase and every sentence is an end and a beginning. Every poem an epitaph. Right? Every poem an epitaph. So all real poetry is about Christ. All real poetry is about the truth. And so what do we have? And I love this idea. Look down at the bottom of that page. What is history? History is a pattern of timeless moments. It's not Napoleon. It's your mom sacrificing herself for you. That's what history is. History is about the little sacrifices we make. History is made when the person in the dorm room next to you needs to talk desperately and you need to study for an exam, but you give that time up and you listen to that person. History is made at that moment because you have sacrificed yourself for someone else. That's history. History can never be recorded because it's secret. It's happening in this closet or across the table in Saga or whatever it may be. And think about what Eliot says. So while the light fails on a winter's afternoon in a secluded chapel, history is now. At that moment of communion in the middle of a church, That's history. With the drawing of the love and the voice of the calling. Right? Just beautiful. All of that. So I don't know what you guys thought of this. If it meant as much to you as it does to me. But I will just tell you on a personal note, when my wife and I lost our daughter, Cecilia, I never, ever could have gotten through it without this poem. I just could not have. My life would be radically different if I was still alive, just trying to get through this. The idea that we are born with the dead, that they return, that just hit me in so many profound ways, thinking about what that means. So I hope this means a lot to you guys as well. It's one of those things that the more you read, I think the more beautiful it becomes. But I am firmly convinced that in this poem, in Little Gidding, if not in all of the 4 quartets, Eliot was given a vision. And I don't know any other way of putting it. I think that he saw things in ways that we've never seen before. And he understands what a miracle is in ways we've never given thought to. I just think it's absolutely stunning. Okay, do you guys have any final thoughts? If not, we'll call it a day. Okay, we'll call it a day. Good. Thanks, you guys, very much.